What's up, Vetters? Patrick here with Vetted. Today, we're talking about this.
I don't know when this is going to air, but George and I have been informed by multiple independent sources that the largest incursion in American history of UAP at the day we're recording happened about a month ago in Texas over a military installation. I'm asking you about this craft. I'm asking you, was it given to us? Was it gifted to us? Was it a crash? Or
you're going to get people mad at me for not answering when they know in advance, and so do you, that I can't answer.
You alluded that the UFO in the possession of the U.S. makes the technology described in your other book, Initial Revelations, look primitive. What did you mean by that?
It looks primitive.
Okay, but what does that mean to you?
It means it's very advanced, and that's all I can say.
Now expand on that. Were you in the craft you are describing?
Oh, I can't expand on that.
I believe you, it's the truth, but why couldn't you tell Congress? I mean, they're not authorized for you to tell them?
All right, Vetters, please hit that like button. That really helps out the videos. And of course, if you're not already subscribed, hit that subscribe button. Y'all, I'm trying to get to 100,000 subscribers by the end of the year. Now, what is this interview about? Well, this is an interview with someone named James Lacatski. He's also known as Jim Lacatski. Jeremy Corbell and George Knapp on their Weaponized podcast did an interview with him and released it in 2 parts. And in this video, I'm going to cover highlights from both parts. Now, this goes back a couple years. Back in October of 2023, they also interviewed him, and there was this big bombshell revelation, trademark bombshell, that James Lacatski had basically brought disclosure to the UFO community. Here's a tweet from Jeremy Corbell back in October where he said this: UFO atom bomb was dropped on Weaponized. Dr. James Lacatski admitted on record and confirmed, number 1, the U.S. government has a UFO in its possession. Number 2, that we have an exploitation program to attempt to reverse engineer it. And number 3, that we were able to get inside it, penetrating the hull. Sounds a lot like my prom. Just kidding. And attached to this tweet was this video.
Is you're officially allowed to tell us that the United States government has in its possession a craft of unknown origin and you were able to access the inside. Is that correct?
The wording that you read is correct. You're going beyond the wording.
No, I'm not. I'm asking you, did that meeting happen? And is it true? And it's true.
Yes.
Okay, so you're telling us, you told us, because you were allowed to tell us, that our government has a UFO in its possession and has been able to access the inside of it, right?
Yes.
And of course, this little sizzle reel and interview with James Lacatski went wildly viral at the time through the UFO community. And again, almost 2 years to the day, James Lacatski is back. Even George Knapp is covering him on his Las Vegas news show, so you can learn a little bit more about who James Lacatski is.
For more than 80 years, the U.S. government has told the public not to fret about UFO intrusions because nearly all of them are explainable. Behind the scenes, though, intelligence agencies and the Pentagon acknowledge there is a deadly serious contest to figure out UFO technology before Russia or China do. Nevada Senator Harry Reid told us before his death that the race is real and that we'd better win it, which is why he was the primary sponsor of a $22 million secret investigation.
And it's not our belief or conjecture or the opinion of the authors. It's facts from the program. These are from official sources, from what the public has paid for.
Dr. James Lacatski spent most of his career with the DIA analyzing the technology of America's adversaries, weapons that could potentially wipe out the world. He was and is a keeper of secrets and regarded his oath and security clearance as gospel. But these days, he is cautiously and meticulously sharing what he can about OSAP, the largest acknowledged UFO investigation ever funded by the U.S. government. Lacatski designed and managed OSAP, inspired by a book he read about a UFO hotspot in a remote corner of Utah, a place now known as Skinwalker Ranch.
This is my impression of James Lacatski doing a Zoom interview I breached all. I love how he's down here at the Zoom, like you can barely see his face. It's just like nothing. Uh, let's move ahead to some clips from part 1 of this interview with James Lacatski.
Does the United States have a physical UFO reverse engineering program? Is that a matter of factual information? Now, you're kind of seen as this Dr. Evil UFO gatekeeper because you don't speak outside of the bounds. You're a vampire, if you haven't heard. But you just said you are for controlled disclosure. So I'm going to remind you and everybody what we learned on the last Weaponized. Almost exactly 2 years ago, you had an authorized admission to make, and you admitted and told us, it was in the book, but you said it verbally, that we have a UFO in government possession, that we have an exploitation effort on that vehicle, that we've been successful in at least penetrating the hull. So you've gone on record, and you told us that last time. Now, without going outside of those bounds, do you stand behind this? That we have
a statement? Oh, absolutely.
But let's get more specific than the statement. Do you stand behind that we have a UFO in our possession, and that because that would mean we have a reverse engineering program on that UFO if you breach the hull? That would answer what everybody wants to know.
I can't answer that. It goes beyond what I've been approved to say.
There's a lot of parts of this interview where he just can't answer it, right? And that is going to not make people very happy, to be honest with you, right? Where it's just, I can't answer it. I can't really go into detail. I can't this, I can't that. So, that's why I'm just like, this just seems off to me, if I'm being honest, a little bit. But Jeremy does a good job in the interview of really trying to push James Lacatski into just giving a black and white answer of just yes or no, what's going on, right? There's definitely a lot of, I don't know if contentious is the right word, but a lot of contentious moments in this interview where Jeremy's really pushing him hard to just lock him in to say something, right? And really just admit that the United States government has a UFO, we're trying to reverse engineer it, and we've gotten inside of it, right? And James is like just really dancing around it. But again, people are taking that as, nope, he admitted it. He said it. It's true. This is what it is. But I'm not particularly sold on that particular fact, right? Again, a UFO could mean a lot of things. And I'll get into that more into the video later. But let's take a look at the next clip.
So, okay, just at the core of it, though, this is one of the largest admissions, because you are for controlled disclosure and you're getting things authorized. It is one of the largest admissions in UFO history that you're admitting and announcing through an authorized disclosure that you had to get authorized. It's amazing they authorized it, that we have a UFO in our possession and that we breached the hull and that there was none of these typical things you'd see for common flight. So again, I'm just asking, I know you've already affirmed it, but that is a factual statement under sworn testimony. You would tell that right to Congress, right?
Yeah, that's what's in the book. They can read it themselves. If they want my hand up, I could do that, but I can't go beyond what is in the text. The next book, I'm not talking about the next one in 6 months. I'm talking about the one that looks at Kona Blue from my perspective. A big decision point on 4 books of OSAP, even though only 1,200 pages, is what's important in there and what isn't.
Well, this is where you get in trouble, though. This is where you, Dr. Lacatski, get in trouble. People say, well, why are you parsing this out in public books rather than testifying to Congress? They're supposed to have oversight of our government. Congress is supposed to have financial and substantial oversight over these things. So if you did testify that we have a reverse engineering program, we have a UFO, and you raise your hand and you say that is factual information, they're going to ask you, where is it being held? How is our money being spent for the taxpayers? Why is it going in your books instead of telling us Congress so we can have oversight?
I can only release what I'm approved to release. And I too am surprised that they approve that. I put it in there deliberately.
And again, this is probably what he's approved to release, right? And he can put it in a book, right? It's like, hey, don't talk about classified stuff, but I'm going to write a book. Okay. Maybe it's not classified. They check that stuff, but I don't know. Just something seems off about that whole dynamic, right? Again, just another issue with trying to deal with former government officials or current officials, right, in the government, who are trying to reveal secrets in the book and tell us everything that's going on. I just have a hard time trusting a lot of that. And mind you, this is a great interview, don't get me wrong, but if you're really looking for answers, I don't know if you're going to get it. It's really up to interpretation, as you'll see as we go through this, really long video I had to make to cover these two parts. But, again, it's what's in the book. But, what's specifically in the book is that James talks that he told that story to some members in Congress, like in a meeting. So they were like, yeah, you can say that. But it's not that he admitted that the government has it. Do you see what I'm saying? It's kind of like, it's like, hey, I told this story, right? That's what they were like, yeah, you can say that. But clearly, if we had if they wouldn't have let him say that, I don't know. Something seems off, y'all, with James Lacatski. And I mean, no disrespect at all. I'm just saying something seems off.
I understand why you do the books, but I think Congress should have oversight. And I think that they should have you in to testify, even behind closed doors. And then it's up to them what the rules are for them to have oversight over these programs. You've already admitted, because you're allowed to, that we have an exploitation or a UFO program to study at least one craft. That has been the core question people have been arguing about, and you're answering that publicly. One more thing, I want to see if we can take you a step further. Last time I asked you, from your book, I said, did you enter the craft at any time? And you said, I can't answer that. Well, Eric Davis has commented publicly, and this is what he said. We couldn't understand the propulsion. Lacatski went inside the UAP, and they didn't find any energy source or propulsion system. So now that Dr. Eric Davis has publicly stated that you were inside this UFO, can you now expand on that? Were you in the craft you are describing?
Oh, I can expand on that. And going back to your question just before this, the reason I really have never, first of all, I've never been asked to testify other than indirectly through you.
Right.
And I had a medical reason not to do it last month.
That's right.
But the thing is, I can tell you a lot of what we're talking about, real intelligence gathering from a variety of folks in these 4 books. It's not as exciting as some of the stories that I've seen. Even if they're just stories, they're not as exciting. But the senators and congressmen can have their staff read the book, summarize it, bullet points.
Okay, but you're not going to answer me if you were in the craft or not yourself.
I can't, and I couldn't in front of Congress. I can do no more than what is in the books to them, and they have it locked. And believe me, it's the absolute truth with what is in the books.
I believe you, it's the truth. But why couldn't you tell Congress? I mean, they're not authorized for you to tell them.
When you're brought into things, I was once told for a particular clearance, I was to inform that agency and their legal team if I was ever asked to go to Congress.
Wow.
And look, I have no problem with people writing books and all this stuff and wanting to get out and promote it. Absolutely. If you offer something of value and someone wants to pay for it, that's between you and them. That's capitalism. That's America. Go for it. I support it all the way. But what's interesting is, me personally, I have a little bit of a problem when people are like, well, there's secrets in my book, and you can learn about the biggest discovery in the history of mankind from my book if you buy it. Otherwise, you won't find out. That seems a little weird. And he's able to write the book off the back of taxpayers, right? Think about it. All the knowledge he got was from taxpayers. Worked for the government. It's all taxpayer money. He was funded by, right? So those are secrets we paid for, and now we got to pay for him a second time. It's like, he's double dipping, y'all, right? It just seems a little strange that, and that he can't go to Congress and tell this stuff, and Jeremy's like, hey, Eric Davis said you stepped inside the craft, right? Which is true. I found a clip of Dr. Eric Davis saying it.
Jim Lacatski describes in his recent book of a year or two ago of how he was able to see an intact craft and go inside of it, and he couldn't recognize any kind of power or propulsion system inside of it.
So how can Dr. Eric Davis be like, yeah, James Lacatski went inside this UFO, right? And James is like, I can't answer that. Why? But how can Eric Davis say it? Right? I mean, Eric, I just did a video about James Fox and his new documentary that's coming out, The Revamped Moment of Contact. And Eric Davis they showed a clip of Eric Davis like, hey, if I'm stripped of all my clearances and Trump allows me and gives me immunity, I'll tell you everything I know in front of Congress under oath. All good, no problem. But, my hands are tied. But you can say that this scientist, James Lacatski, who was in OSAP, went inside the crap. Why is that okay? But then James can't say what's going on. Why can't James admit it now? Again, something just seems off. All right, y'all. Now it's time to move into part 2 highlights of this interview. Again, I'm going to put links below so you can watch the full interview to this. But, there's so much to cover. I couldn't get it all, but there are quite a bit we are going to cover today. But if you want the full, both parts of the interview, links down below, go check it out. It really is a great interview that Jeremy and George did.
I mean, I think this interview, I'm saying much more than the first one. But the thing is, it's all still hasn't crossed the line. And but I've got to ask what the line is about future things.
Because you're telling us UFOs, we have one, we're reverse engineering it, but can you describe the inside? Can you talk about your personal experience with this craft, how you breached the hull? You don't know if you can say those things yet, but certainly they want us to know that much, not the nuclear codes, but the fact nuclear weapons exist. Right. Same thing about UFOs.
Yes, I believe it'll go in the same way.
Yeah.
So again, it's just back to breaching the hull of this craft, right? That, again, we haven't even established that this craft is alien. They're just saying it's a UFO and they saw no means of propulsion or this or that. And, there's no way to know if it's Russia or China. It's definitely not Russia or China. Well, how do we know? We don't know what Russia and China are working on. We can assume, but we can't cross the finish line into that, right? And to say it's definitely, aliens. Because if it's not, why are we talking about it on UFO channels and stuff? Like, we're here to talk about aliens, right? So I think some of this could be true, but not in the way we think. That makes sense? Like, yeah, they have a UFO, but all that means is unidentified flying object. That could, if we find something from another country and we don't know what it is, they'll just say it's a UFO, right? When I hear UFO in the UFO community, I think aliens. We all do. Let's be real. So I don't know why we call them UFO. UFO is taking on a whole new, there's the acronym UFO, and then there's the word UFO. And the word UFO means effing aliens to most of us. Let's be real, right? And that gets played with, and that could be used against us. And I think in this instance, that is exactly what's happening. I don't know for sure. I'm just spitballing here, y'all. And I'm probably going to get a ton of hate in the comments, but that's okay. Because you know what? I'm just being real with how I feel. And I'm going to keep rhyming for mass appeal. I'm just kidding. I'm just being raw, y'all, saying how I feel. Let me know what you think down in the comments about all this. Let's continue.
So, hey, just right off the cuff here, through some investigative journalism over the years, I came to understand that you were read into and involved in a legacy UAP program before OSAP. Do you deny that?
I can't speak to that. The only other clearance I had was a Q clearance at DO.
I'm not concerned with your clearances. I'm concerned specifically with the question of if you were involved with and read in to a legacy UFO program before OSAP. And I asked you if you would deny that. Is your response still, I can't speak about that?
I can't speak about that.
Okay.
All right, so this clip went kind of viral in the UFO community for a few different reasons. One is that, people are saying James Lacatski is admitting to being inside of a UFO legacy program before OSAP in the 2000s, which I guess is where he breached the hull of a craft and was able to get inside, right? But he's not saying that at all. He's saying, I can't answer that. But that's what happens in this community. When someone's like, if they get asked a question like, I can't answer that. Oh, see, he's admitting it. He's not. Or if they say I can neither confirm nor deny, they're like, he confirmed it. He literally said, the opposite of that. He's neutral. He can't confirm or deny. That doesn't mean you're confirming it. Why would that loophole be left for classified information? That's just a loophole. Well, if you say I can't confirm nor deny, then you're confirming it. Why can't it be you're denying it? Why is it, right? It's like you can choose either one. That's the whole point. So I think people are running with this a little too much. And there's another part in there that's kind of interesting where Jeremy's like, I don't need to know about your clearances. And under his breath, because they're kind of talking over each other, the audio, you can't hear it, but James Lacatski's like, you should be concerned about that, right? Like James does sound like he's trying to balance that line of not breaking any of his clearances or NDAs or whatever he signed. I just don't even know why you toe the line with this stuff if that was really a concern, right? I don't know. Something interesting I just found out, the SEAL team member who was part of the Osama bin Laden raid and all that after that happened, he released a book without getting DOPSR approval, and he didn't go to jail. It took years for him to settle with them afterwards, but he didn't go to jail. Nothing happened, right? And he was revealing all kinds of secrets. He didn't get it approved. So I don't know. Again, something just seems off to me.
The Yankee Blue narrative is that everybody's been
I've heard of it.
Everybody's been fooled for decades with this, and that's the source of all of this UFO nonsense. But then again, you ran a program on this that's telling us we have a craft. So what do you think of this Yankee Blue narrative that doesn't add up, by the way?
I don't think they're claiming an extent of a program. I wouldn't say that they wouldn't do something like that. That's a test case, but I would and see how certain military, especially military police, respond near weapon sites. But the thing is to claim, don't claim too much when you're trying to do a counterintelligence effort. Don't say it's been going on for years.
Right.
Everybody's been duped.
Yeah, they made a mistake that it's been a decades-long shenanigan.
Yeah, I think that was a mistake. Don't get too fancy with your fake story.
Now, this is interesting, right? The Yankee Blue, if you're not familiar, is this program that came out in this Wall Street Journal article, basically stating that the United States government was hazing people in the Air Force using this Yankee Blue program to basically tell people there's aliens and sign them to secrecy, but it was all BS. It wasn't real. And basically saying, this is therefore responsible for all the UFO lore. Now, even I have to admit, that seems a little ridiculous. Every story, everything, I don't know. Some of it, yes, I do believe that, right? Who and what, I don't know. But, it's interesting that James Lacatski's like, yeah, I've heard of Yankee Blue. Right? Okay. And he even admits they would do something like this. There is misinformation that gets out. They do push stuff out that's fake to mess with people. So how the hell are we supposed to find this out? How are we supposed to know, regular folks? It's impossible. That's what I'm saying. Trying to get government disclosure and trying to parse through all this labyrinth of puzzles and mysteries, from the government of what's going on and what do they have and this and that. Man, we are so much better off trying to explore this phenomena with just regular people. Look into this. That's it. You know what I mean? That's why I'm doing my psionics documentary. Ain't no government officials I got to deal with and all that BS. Again, I'm happy that Jeremy and George are doing this interview, and that's really the world they live in. Government disclosure and dealing with government officials. And I guess at the end of the day, someone's got to do it. I just don't want to do it. So I guess they do that for us, right? Essentially have to deal with that BS because it just seems like a total, absolute mess to deal with.
Yeah, you said that last time. You said every special access program has a counterintelligence officer. That's their job. You have that person either assigned to you or you bring him in, and there's a source of forged documents, because we were talking about that. Well, I'll just tell you, George and I have had pushed on us numerous times these yet to be released, quote unquote, Zodiac documents, an alleged program that is an alleged legacy program, which George and I never bought. When we see this information pushed on us, we're not buying it. Is that a UFO legacy program that's been claimed? Or is that
I couldn't-
disinformation?
I couldn't comment on that.
Right,
But is there disinformation out there? Plenty.
right.
Plenty.
I think we're clear on that
And-
one.
Now, this is also interesting. These Zodiac documents that probably are going to get released, which I don't know why if they're fake, but I have heard people talk about Zodiac and this program and all this stuff, and it has been passed around and people have fallen for it. YouTubers, podcasters. I'm not here to name names. I've definitely seen people talking about it, and that's what happens. These people get used because people want in on the secrets. They want in on the knowledge, and it's very easy to tease somebody with a carrot when all they're thinking about is, I want carrots, right? So that's what I think is happening with a lot of this stuff. Now, I don't think it's all one way or the other. Like, I don't think it's all BS and I don't think it's all true, right? So where in the middle is it? And which story should we pay attention to, right? This is just so difficult to navigate, right? Especially if you're just average everyday person. And I do this all day, and this is very hard to try to navigate.
I'm asking you about this craft. I'm asking you, was it given to us? Was it gifted to us? Was it a crash? Or
you're going to get people mad at me for not answering when they know in advance, and so do you, that I can't answer. And neither could they. And neither can some of the people who are going before Congress. They're putting pretty tight restrictions on it if they do go behind closed doors. I'm saying the closed doors don't really matter in answering their question.
Okay, here's something you can't answer. I imagine you can't answer to me if the craft had its own intelligence, if it was sentient in some way in and of itself. You're not going to answer that, I assume, right? So I got one you can't answer. Last one, George, on this craft, but I just got to ask these or I'm not doing my job. You alluded that the UFO in the possession of the U.S. makes the technology described in your other book, Initial Revelations, look primitive. What did you mean by that?
It looks primitive.
Okay, but what does that mean to you?
It means it's very advanced, and that's all I can say. Very, very advanced, and with worldwide repercussions.
Okay, but like, give me an idea I can sink my teeth into of what that means. When you say very advanced, I'm thinking, well, I've got an iPhone 17 and an original iPhone. That's a big difference. Are we talking, sticks and stones to superconductors advanced difference?
Absolutely.
And of course, we're back to can't talk about it. I can't say this. I can't say that, right? Like, where does this craft come from, right? And there's an interesting part to this interview that I didn't include, but where they kind of go through this process of like, hey, you only have so much money and time to study this UFO. So as scientists, we want to know, how does it work, right? How does it run? And Jeremy makes the point of like, well, I'd probably want to know where it's from. Where are they from, right? Which is a very good answer. And I think if you're really a scientist looking into this, you'd want to know that first too, because that might help you understand how it works. You might learn a distance that they came, and then, let's think about what kind of power you would need from that distance, right? So something feels off. That's why I'm saying it's almost like this is just a regular craft, human made, and they can call it a UFO because they don't know where it's from. When they say they don't know where it's from, which country it's from. And that's why he doesn't want to look into where it's from, because they know it's from Earth somewhere, not some magical place. And he wants to know how it operates. And these things exist. There are crash retrieval programs for the United States government, and we do find things. And we try to reverse engineer it or find out more about it, right? We find a new drone, we find a new this, we find a new that, a piece of this. Hey, how does it work? Where does it go, right? You know what I mean? It's like, I just think there's just something off here. Again, something really off.
I don't know when this is going to air, but George and I have been informed by multiple independent sources that the largest incursion in American history of UAP at the day we're recording happened about a month ago in Texas over a military installation. And I know you're out of it now, but have you heard of that new recent incursion that is not public yet?
I haven't heard it. Though back after I retired and was still aware of what the various programs were doing, but there was heavy interest in UAPs back then. Now how long have I been retired? Almost 10 years now. So
UAP incursions of military bases is real. You had to study them. You had high up information on them. So this idea that we're just testing an EMP back in the 60s and that's shutting down nuclear weapons is, in your point, would be nonsense, correct?
Nonsense. And from my point of view, it would be nonsense. If it's real, I'd be very surprised. And by the way,
it's real, meaning it was EMP fake out on everybody. You'd be surprised.
I'd be very surprised
if
it was an EMP fake out.
Now, this was a very interesting part of the interview. Was not expecting this kind of, bit to come out. And it is interesting. Jeremy is basically saying, right, the largest UFO incursion over a military base just happened in September of this year because, they recorded this in October, right? And again, very interesting that that's when James Lacatski was going to testify, but he had a medical emergency. But of course, he's able to do the podcast, no problem. There's always medical emergencies around these testimonies or skiffs or someone's sick or something, the skiff flu thing and all this stuff, right? There's just all kinds of things that happen. And I just find that, again, very interesting. I want to know more information about what happened. And this is kind of interesting. It happens in Texas, my home state, right? What, UFO incursion, like, what do we mean? Hopefully more information comes out about that. And it is interesting that James Lacatski is like, never heard of it, right? What do you mean? Never heard of it, right? But why doesn't James Lacatski have sources like Jeremy and George do, or podcasters? I mean, I see podcasters with 500 subscribers, like, I got intelligence sources telling me this and that. Like, what? Random Twitter accounts, my intelligence source told me, what? But James Lacatski doesn't know some of this stuff? Like, doesn't make any sense. I get that he's been retired 10 years, but again, he's not trying to stay up to date with what's going on. And, I don't know. Again, something seems off, and I'm sure someone in the comments going to let me know what an idiot I am for not understanding this, but here we are.
We haven't even talked about some of the content of your new book, but this is chock full.
New insights, new book.
I mean, there's a heck of a lot of stuff packed into this book. UFO cases that really have not been discussed in the public that you guys ran to ground. I mean, you really did a number and went back to the original information and witnesses and put this together. Yes. Are there any that jump out at you that you'd like to share with our audience on this program, UFO in particular?
There are 3 cases where there was close-up observation. There was the one in Kansas where the teenagers and a police officer both took a picture of a high-altitude black triangle, and then the kids were, not kids, young adults were very surprised of seeing a large black triangle come over the trees where they were waiting to be picked up by their parents. And that triangle suddenly backing up, which is an unusual maneuver for triangles, and then proceeding ahead in this blinking out of existence, clearly not flying off quickly. That's been seen too, just blink out of existence. And then for all of the young adults having achieved electronic countermeasure status, they're knocking out computers, creating fires uncontrollably, but still nevertheless doing that, knocking out car batteries. There was that case, but having the picture from the police officer showing a black triangle with non-B2 lighting, that was interesting reality check. But 6 witnesses saying they saw the same thing, but even they couldn't understand at their young age, why would the military have a triangular UFO with 100 Christmas lights on it? It didn't literally have Christmas lights, but it had what appeared to be projecting white light beams coming down that didn't project. They could clearly see and detect their eyes the photons coming down. It was shining down, but it was never hitting the ground. It was not lighting up the ground. Another one was the Georgia case, where the fella inadvertently not inadvertently, he deliberately fired at a black triangle, a 1,000,000 candle spotlight, and it immediately fired back a radiation beam. And he got tumors from it. That was one of our more intense medical cases. And then the California case where bass investigators saw a craft on the ground. Those are the three that stand out for me.
And of course, this was all for a book that he was going to put out. And again, nothing wrong with writing a book. Could be pretty interesting, right? It's no problem. Again, someone offers something of value, you want to pay for it, that's between you and them. So all good. But it is interesting, one of the stories he tells about this black triangle craft, right? Where, in my opinion, all the people were looking for clues in this interview that James was revealing things without revealing things. If we can just figure out these clues, we'll figure it out, right? Whatever to that. But I think there's a bigger clue in that story that no one is talking about. Because James says, it was unusual that the craft backed up, because that's not what those black triangle craft do. What? How do you know what these black UFO triangles do that are alien spacecraft? You have no idea, right? You don't know all of what they do. That makes no sense. But then when it disappears and takes off and causes fires, that's not unusual. That's okay that it does that. But backing up all of a sudden is like, holy crap, like your car goes in reverse. Oh my God, it goes in reverse. Like, it's supposed to be an alien spacecraft that can traverse time and space and manipulate gravity. But the fact that it backs up in reverse, beep, beep, like, holy cow, what? I mean, that makes no sense. And it makes me think that James slipped up there. Because you can tell he kind of like, ooh, I don't know if he wanted to say that. Because it makes it sound like it's a craft that we have. It's American technology, and he knows what it does. So the fact that it backed up was maybe a new aspect to what it could do. I don't know. I could be reaching there, but that's the clue I focused on. If we're looking for clues, that's what I found. All right, y'all. Hope you enjoyed this interview with James Lacatski and the highlights. Go check out the full interview on Weaponized. I'm going to put links down below. Again, it's broken up into 2 parts, and I recommend watching it. There's a lot I didn't cover, and it is, at minimum, entertaining to watch. It's a little bit contentious at times, and Jeremy really does push James to try to give some more concrete answers about it. And I can tell that Jeremy is very excited about what James is saying. I'm personally not there. I think there's just something really off with this. But I can understand someone's enthusiasm about this. Okay, I respect it. Me personally, I'm glad these interviews come out, and I'm glad this information comes out for sure, because then I can just do what I want with it. You know, it's more data, right? But I'm not convinced, and for me personally, this isn't disclosure. But I respect anyone that is excited about this and takes this very seriously. So, you know, to each their own, right? Heads on a swivel, but to each their own. All right. Thank y'all so much for watching. We'll see you guys in the next one. Remember, every day's a gift, y'all. Peace.
Yeah, Patrick, I don't have a question. I have something I want to tell you about. This is my second message to you, and I know you're busy working on your documentary, but I may have some stuff you can use as well in what you're doing. I have some very up close and personal things that my wife and I shot one night while just doing some pictures of the moon and things like that. And we had a craft or an orb come very, very close to us. And we have some striking photos of that. There's actually hundreds of, maybe even thousands of them. If you give me a call back, we can dig those out for you. Very few people know about them, just my close friends and family. We just sat on them for about a year now. So anyway, give me a call back.